Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It's your boy, Coach Josh Smalls in the building. You already know what it is. It is an amazing day. Why is this day amazing? You ask me that every day, and I tell you, it's amazing because you are here and I'm able to be here with you just to share this 1 hour that's going to feel amazing. I have a super dope guest with me today that I'm very excited. And when we bring her on, I'm be very, very excited to see her face. I'm glad that she's here. Yes, everything is working fine and perfect. And yeah, I'm going to bring her on momentarily. And y'all just get ready because she is phenomenal with a phenomenal. You know what that means? Phenomenal. You ever heard of that before? Phenomenal. Anyway, yeah. So thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for waking up this morning and coming and spending this time with us. I'm gonna pour me a little extra coffee in there, but that's what we do, right? Come on in the room. Come on up in the spot. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time before I bring her up on because she's so fabulous that y'all gonna wish y'all had her for 2 hours. What in the hoopla? Who we need to pray for, Coach? Listen, we don't listen. We don't need to pray for nobody today because who I got in the building today, the one and only Miss. Okay, I think Miss Parker. I think you're frozen. Are you frozen? Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. I got you in two slots here. Let's do this here. There we go. Now we ready. Miss Parker is in the building. Everybody, shout out to Miss Parker. What's up with you, lady?
Hello, sweetheart. How are you?
You know what? If it got any better, I couldn't stand it. If it got any better, I could not stand it. I would be in trouble.
And there it is. And there it is.
And so I know it's like really early in the morning for you.
For me.
So I appreciate yes for you.
Yes.
So I appreciate you being here. If y'all don't know who Miss Parker is, you are getting ready to get a dose of her today. And be ready because it's like strong coffee in the morning. It's gonna wake you up and make you feel good all over. Like Stephanie Mills. Y'all feel good on. Okay, I'm sorry.
Some of
So Miss
the
Parker,
some of the people don't know who Stephanie Mills is.
you know what? Ain't that a sad thing? I
Yeah.
went into okay before I go there, before I even start that rant, before I even start this rant. Tell the people who you are, where you're from, what you do. Just let these folks who don't know you step into your world. Tell them who Miss Parker is.
Well, greetings, family. I am Miss Parker, and I am a spoken word artist, a writer, a facilitator of an amazing workshop called the Insomniac Poets Writers Unblocked Pen Party. Have done several things when it comes to this thing called poetry. I have done, we have the Women's Wildcard Wednesday on IG now, every Wednesday. I am also part of the IQ production where we do events when we open back up. And there's other things. I'm a mom, retired lifeguard, and a community member. So as we get into this, you'll learn a little bit more.
So the foolish thing about me is I always figured if I was going to learn how to swim, that I want a woman teaching me because I didn't want no man holding me up underneath the water. I just don't trust it. Now, obviously, I have some issues, right? But that's all good and fine.
Well,
That is
yeah,
good.
we have preferences.
Yeah, this is true. It's true. And you have to. I think, especially today now, because you never know what somebody coming with. Now, I don't want, certain things ain't going to fly right with me.
Right.
Ms. Parker, what's the temperature over there? Because I just want to know.
I have no idea what the temperature is. I just know the temperature's cold.
And that cold is probably like 50 degrees.
Yeah, I know. I can't talk to y'all East Coast people about cold. Y'all don't want to hear my complaining because y'all like you don't even know.
Yeah, it was 30 something degrees yesterday and again today and the day before that.
Yeah.
I don't want to know nothing. The low is like 27. That's the low. Like who the hell wants to listen? I ain't no caveman. My ancestors wasn't caveman. We want to dwell in no caveman weather.
This is caveman weather.
This is caveman weather. So you said that they don't know who Stephanie Mills is. Let me tell you, I went into high school and we was talking to the children about poetry and music. And I asked, this is high school now. It's just like a few years ago.
Right.
And I asked the students, I said, do you know who Anita Baker is? And nobody knew who Anita Baker was. And I'm wondering,
yeah,
where are their parents?
Well, let me tell you the story of me back in the day. I'm I'm a little older than you. I think that makes me about 22. But back in the day, Sarah Vaughan is one of my favorite artists.
Oh,
And my grandmother was a music teacher. So I went to a local place, like a record shop. We used to have those. And when I went to the record shop, I went and asked for Sarah Vaughan, and they didn't know who she was
wow.
in our community. Then I went over to the affluent community. I will leave them colorless because they are. Um, I went to the affluent community, and I went to go buy Sarah Vaughan, and they were out of her.
Wow.
So if you look at so a lot of times our relationships with our own greats, we haven't been exposed to, but they know who we are.
Right. I cannot, and so I'm a lover of music. I listen to so many different genres of music, right?
Mhm.
And I've always been a lover of, I wasn't always a lover of jazz because I didn't understand it, but I didn't take the time to listen. See, jazz music is a feel music. And so you don't listen to hear, you listen to feel. And I think
Right.
people miss that. When you find your first jazz song that works for you, you all instantly fall in love with jazz. In fact, Mr. Witz is just recently getting into jazz, and that's when he started doing poetry to jazz. And jazz music is one of my favorites. And I think people don't listen to, they listen to music for the different things. Because I
Yeah.
don't listen to hip hop. I don't listen to hip hop I listen to change my mood to whatever that excitement mood might be. But that's not the same reason I would listen to jazz.
Right.
And when you talk about Sarah Vaughan, you talk about the Coltrane's that everybody know, the Miles Davis, Dizzy. When you get into the Duke Ellingtons and all of those people who play instruments, like they didn't need a big MPC and all these studio things. They just needed a keyboard and get them a drummer and somebody who could play some strings, and we got a party. We got a
Yeah.
party.
Well, I think about music because that's one of my greatest loves as well. My grandmother was a music teacher, so
Okay.
you couldn't help but adore music. And I listen to all genres. There's some bomb country music. I think the only genre I can't get jiggy with, and I'm gonna let you know that I'm over here on the Instagram too, and they said hello. I don't know how they can get over here, but
If they come on YouTube or through Facebook, they can come right on here.
so
it
if
don't
y'all
allow-
on YouTube and on Facebook and you want to hear this interview, come on into the room. With Coach Small. So yeah, I've been one of those people who has always loved it. And country music and everything. The only one I can't get jiggy with is I think heavy metal. The sounds are just too much.
I cannot. I don't understand the music patterns with heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It doesn't move me. And when I was in college, right, one of the they had a party and we went to somebody's house and was picking up one of my boys and his roommate listened to all that heavy metal stuff. Mm-hmm. And heavy metal makes me feel dangerous and unsafe.
Wow.
And I just can't get into it. I don't knock people for what they listen to. It's just not my thing. I just don't. And like a lot of people don't know that I love opera. Like I can go to opera every weekend and be just fine.
Wow.
Just fine. It's one of my favorites. So
yeah.
So Ms. Parker, let's talk about you and your writing career. Right? People know the story. They may not know how did that begin for you? What was that like for you?
Well, I think I got to take it back from writing because I think it's important to share the other part of this story because a lot of people know the story about my mom, but a lot of people haven't found a flashback to me as a young girl. As a young girl, I was told I wasn't smart. As a young girl, I told I was quite I was put in special need classes, And then I was always ignored, put in the class with all of the kids that were disruptive, because now we've learned to use the language, not bad, but disruptive, because of what may or may not have been going on in their homes. So I was put with those children. And so I felt drowned out, because the people who walk in and know that these are the quote unquote bad kids can't decipher from the kids that have been put over there because they're slower. And so my grandmother took me from a 3rd grade reader to a 6th grade reader. And I finally got up to par somewhat. And so I carried that with myself. I carried the insecurities of that. I couldn't read in front of people in public. I remember a day I wrote something with my mother, and I won. And I had to stand in front of all of these people and read what I wrote on some cue cards. And standing behind a pulpit, I just got nervous. I started choking. It was a very bad experience that I can recall now. So, it must have been traumatizing. And to this day, I cannot stand behind a pew without becoming that little girl again. So it shocks me to even be in the position I'm in now. But my mother, I never would have taught. I tell this story all the time. You couldn't have told me, you couldn't have bought me for a dime. You couldn't have told me that I was going to be a poet. And so when I became a poet, it was because my mother passed away. And my mother passed away in 2011. 2012, I found a open mic, and I started to do her poetry. And she was the kind of woman who was doing poetry that was structured poetry. And so that's what I fell in love with. But I fell in love with poetry through Edgar Allan Poe, through so my first exposure to poetry was my mother, but also my grandmother. My grandmother was a teacher of like I said, music teacher, but she would pay us to memorize Shakespeare, to memorize a poem. So if you learned that, you got paid. So I would have trouble reading it. I would have somebody help me read it, and then I would memorize. So when my mom passed away, I just went on. I started memorizing her poetry just out of the love for poetry. And when she passed away, I started reciting hers. Then I found this place called Vibrations, and they were like, it's good that you do your mom's poems, but you have a voice too. So start coming. So Sunday nights, that became my church. I would always go to a writing class. And they kind of broke me out of my shell. I was very nervous when I started. And I still get nervous, but I was very timid, and my writing style was totally different than it is now. Yeah.
Ms. Parker, every time I hear that story, it give me chills. So my uncle, my brother Witz, we talk about this a lot. My uncle's a poet, and my mom is also a poet. And my uncle belongs to, I forgot the name of the group, but there's a poetry group in New York that he belongs to. And when poets come in town, they're in charge of going to pick them up and taking them to where they were staying and escorting them to places in the city. And I didn't know all of these things about my uncle. It's just, because we was rappers when we were young.
Right.
And my uncle used to say, man, y'all rap good, but we didn't get into the poetry part of it until way later. Now, I've always written poetry. I just didn't share it with outside of females, because that's who would read it, right? Dudes don't want to hear that. Man, get that out of here. And so poetry kind of grew on me in a way, because in New York City, being young like that, if you weren't in the poetry community, you kind of kept it under wraps. Like, people didn't know about it.
Right.
And so I think it's a question that I have for you. I think poetry it's something that you're born with, even if you don't know how to put it out, right? Even if you don't know how to say it, you're not sure how to write. I think there's a poem in every person.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's just like, the seed's there and it grows to whatever it's going to grow to. It's just whether you make it a simple dandelion or you decide to make it a rose bush.
Right.
Right. And so do you think what your mom and grandmother, the manifestation of Miss Parker, do you believe that was before you even thought about it?
I think, well, first of all, We all are storytellers. I
That's
believe
right.
that with all my heart. And I told stories with him. I was a spoken word artist before I knew I was. When I think about my life, I used to tell stories back in junior high and high school, and I would be the class clown sometimes just so I could fit in. But I think us as a people, we've all been storytellers at one point. Whether you cultivate that or not is different. Whether you, and a lot of people will detach themselves from you. And when I say to people, "Oh, you're a poet," and they'll say, "No, I'm not a poet," and then they'll start to talk to me, and they'll talk in poetry. The way they describe stuff. I tell poets before they pick up their pen, they still writing. We just capture some of the things that we write. Some things just they leave. And so I do know that unbeknownst to me, I was a poet. I come from the legacy of poets. My grandfather was a poet and a professor. My grandmother wrote. And then when I started to hear about my grandmother's people, how they were all singers, they were all artists. Now I wish I could have got the vocal cords. I'm pretty disappointed in them that they were stingy and they didn't give me the vocal cords. But so it is. So yes, I do believe there's a writer in, and maybe not the poet part, but there's a writer in everyone. There's a writer in everyone. And that is my mission, is for people to tap into their stories, because people will I always tell people, if you don't write your story, somebody's right. Best believe somebody else is writing it. And if you ever get a hold of the book, you may not like the character that they wrote you as. So
Absolutely. Emmanuel had a question for you. He said, "What's your most positive writing motivator, and what's your most negative motivator?"
That's
Good
interesting.
question. It is.
I think my most positive motivator is just being able to release all of the energies that's in me. And so I think that becomes the positive thing and the negative thing, because sometimes the shit you got to say don't feel good, but it has to be said. And so I think that there's a duality in that. I'm a bipolar person. I ain't been diagnosed, but I kind of know myself. And so when we deal with the sometimes the same thing that motivates us in a positive way will motivate us in a negative way. It just depends on the circumstance in which it's being presented. It's that moment. What moment is it? If you're hurting, you had just had a bad relationship, you're writing about it. If you had a good relationship and you're writing about it, so I think that it just depends on the situation that you're motivated impromptu, and it's forever changing. I wish I could say that it wasn't, but it's forever changing.
Forever changing. I strongly believe that you live in your story, whether you're ignoring it or not.
Right.
Because once you put it in a compartment, you have to fight to keep it there.
Yeah.
And so you have a whole different journey, because you're still trying to keep this thing locked away. So you're still writing your story without writing the story. And I think the one thing that I love most about being a writer, not just being a poet, but just being a writer, is I have the ability to tell you which parts of it I want to tell you. And then I can actually take it through a sifter and break it down so that you understand exactly why I chose to go down Avenue B instead of going down Avenue C. And I think we have that potential to do so. I think I'll give you a story real quick. I was at the YMCA a couple of years back, actually about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic started. And I was talking to one of the guys that I knew for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I plan on putting out 6 books within this next year. And then another guy was sitting there that kind of just joined the conversation. He said to me, he said, I don't mean to be disrespect, but you kind of, don't you think you're not giving people enough time to get into whatever books you put out first? And I said, well, do you tell a library or a bookstore, we only want 1 book to come in this week?
Right.
You can't tell them that. And then I said, think about the people who have never put that book out. and they're no longer here. They never got to put it on paper. They're no longer here. Now, that story will never be told that way. Even if I wrote someone's life, I can't tell it from the way that they would tell it. I said, so oversaturation as a writer doesn't exist to me.
Right.
In fact, when I teach my workshops, I want you to tell me the temperature. I want you to tell me what season it is, regardless of what we're talking about, because I need all of those details. So I think people miss the mark when they don't put it on paper. I think they miss it.
And for sure, I agree 100% with that. Whether it was for me to agree on or not. I have a story that's was used to sitting in my closet. And when I had my bout with homeless, it was sitting in my storage. It's my mother's story. And I'm still processing so that I can get her story out. My mother was a writer. I always talk about her being a poet, but she was a writer. And there's a lot of her stuff we lost during our transitions. And that's a 2-hour show. So we ain't gonna talk about that. But during our transitions with her, we going from her domestic violence to moving out and doing some other things, we lost a lot of stuff. And back in the day, there were no computers, So, but there's this one particular story, and by the grace of God, that I printed out for her when I was working, and it's sitting sitting on my shelf right now so that I can do it. But imagine that story. It's not lost because I have it, but imagine that story not coming to fruition. And that is why I think my biggest passion is, I was a listener far before I was ever a writer. Purposely put down some notes on a page. The most important thing is to get your story out, because what you don't want to do, and what I don't want to do, that's why I'm working on my book now, is that if I should pass away, my son says, oh, my mother was a beautiful writer, beautiful writer. And she, but she never came out. She never had a book. She never had this. And so I think it's most important that you share that story. You tell that story. And even if none of you guys ever want to write a story for you, write the story for your children, write the story for your children's children, because they get to meet their auntie, their uncle, their grandmother, their grandfather. They get to meet them in their energy.
Yeah.
Because when we tell the story, we tell it from the perspective of us. Y'all are only going to learn my mother through me when I talk about her. But when I spit her poetry, you learn her through her.
Yeah.
So
I've had one of the things that make me really dislike my daughter's mom, right, is because she trashed all of my journals. I've had journals since, I want to say, like 99. And those journals are for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grand, because when I'm no longer here, I want them to be able to say, hey, my great-great-great-grandfather was going through this, and he was dealing with that, and he said this, and he said that. And so I think people fail to leave their legacy. Everybody has a legacy.
Yes.
If you're breathing, you have a legacy. There's a story within your being that you should think that your grandchildren and your great-grand should deserve to know. And it doesn't matter what your role is. You may teach them. You may actually save them by sharing your story. I would love to be whatever the afterlife is, right?
Yes.
And if there's a portion of the afterlife, I can look down hundreds of years from now and see someone with my bloodline reading my story and saying, wow, I had a great uncle that 200 years ago left these stories for me to know what he went through. And it may be totally different. But you know what? Another thing about that, I'm just thinking about, you may have created a new writer, a new movie writer, a script writer, a playwright, a poet, a musician. You may encourage them to do a professor of history, right? And so I think people should do, at the minimum, I think everybody should journal. think everybody should journal. Another thing that I'm starting up now is the pen pal. I want to start the pen pal thing again. Postcards don't cost much of anything, and I'm trying to start that up again. In fact, I looked at my mail sends me an email when my mail is coming. I got my first postcard coming in the mail today, and I'm excited about that. And so I'm trying to start that up because I think the more we write, even if it's little things, I think it creates this parade, if you will.
And you know, it's funny. You and I think alike because there's nothing like. The computers are amazing, and for me and my learning disability, they've been a huge help because I ain't got to spell shit now. I just got to ask my homeboy Google to go ahead and spell it for me. So in that, but it's a double-edged sword because now I'm not crafting and learning that. I'm just relying on. However, our brothers and our sisters that are in jail are still writing and being written too, because they can't get an email. But there's so much vibration, so much energy that is put on a page that we're missing. That's the piece that we're missing, is the part that's put on the page, the tangibility of it, you know, because all of this that we have now, I mean, if you really think about it, we own nothing. You only own your intellectual property when you own it. If you don't own your intellectual property, somebody else is taking it. I'm going to say it again. If you don't own your intellectual property, someone else is going to take it.
That's right.
Conversations. And, you know, we're recycling ideas. The universe gives us ideas, and it's for us, because then you get, I don't know if you've ever had an idea and then you saw it 2 years later and you're like, dang, they took my idea. No, the universe gave it to you first, passed it on to them because it was necessary. It was needed in the community. It was needed in the world, and you dragged your ass on it. So when I say we don't own nothing, look at it. At a time, you were buying CDs and DVDs. And let's go back to the big VHSs. We own those things.
Yeah.
But technology said, and the way we live now said, we don't want them to own nothing. So now everybody's like, hey, I'm going to go on and put my stuff in the cloud. I'm going to go do this. And yes, it frees our houses up and they don't look cluttered. But what do you own? Because when you don't pay your Spectrum bill, do you own the $3 that you put on a CD? I mean, on a movie that you bought, you don't have access to it. When you put your stuff in the cloud and your pictures are in the cloud, do you own them? No, you don't. Because as soon as you don't pay that bill, you're not going to have your stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that we are moving in a direction where it's purposely telling us we don't own. And a lot of people who think they own their home, let you not pay that tax. Let you not pay those taxes. Somebody, you didn't pay $80,000 for a home, $100,000 for a home, but don't pay them taxes. You're going to lose your home for $500. You're going to lose your home for $1,000. So I encourage people, the only thing that you own when you become free is your mind, your pen, and your paper.
Yeah. And there's such a freedom in that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The moment you feel that pen make love to those papers or go to war with that paper, right? Because sometimes my pen go on the war. Sometimes my pen is chopping shit up and it's all out mayhem on a sheet of paper. But there's a beauty in that, you know, feeling that ink come to life. Because this is dead until I decide to make it kiss the paper. It's dead. It's just here. It ain't worth a damn just sitting there. But the moment I start to let it dance, and now it's a ballerina, and now it's a warrior, and now it's a king, and now it's a storyteller, it turns into something totally different.
Right.
I've been a news reporter, a politician, a president, a leader, a prisoner. I've been all of it with that pen.
Right. Exactly. And I think that is, and I'll go a little step further. We plant when you go to the Home Depot and you buy the soil and you buy the seeds. The seeds are still in the pack. They have the same, you have the same resource. It's just, what do you do with it? What do you plant your pen onto paper?
Let me write that.
Do you plant your pen onto paper? And that so you are planting seeds on pages when you plant your pen onto paper. And so if you don't, so you have it. We all have seeds. We all have pens and papers, but when do you plant it? And when do you nurture it? And how many seeds every year are you planting? And are you planting with purpose? So, and I think that we all as writers have to figure out, are we planting with purpose? And it's okay, whatever your purpose is. I am not always a power to the people writer. I remember one time I was trying to do this open mic at a local place, a local gallery, and the man that wanted it, he wanted me to do the open mic, but he wanted to steer the open mic the way he wanted it, which I feel like you might as well do your own open mic. He was like, yeah, all I want is revolutionary poems and everything else. And so now I'm starting to feel small in my art because and then Spirit said, love is the most revolutionary thing that you can write about. Yeah. And so, yes, we have to page our pain. We have to page our history. We have to page all those things, but it's not for everyone to page everything. And I want people to be very diversified and be able to write, because I don't never want to say to myself, I could never write a revolutionary poem, or I could never, now I'm writing an intimate poem. Because I don't like to use the word erotic, because I think it's bastardized so much. But I remember going to a open mic and having someone do an erotic piece that I felt like I needed to call 911 for. The way that the person explained their love language, which was they met somebody on the street, then that person took them up to a home, and then there was another person there, and they both got busy. One was in the front, one was in the back of her, and I was like, "You need help? Do you need help? Should I call? Do you have a safe word?" And from that point, I said, I can never write an erotic poem. And I was so anti, you would not believe it, but I was so anti-erotic poems. Wow. Because it wasn't the language in which I love. So so Spirit said, write in your own love language. And I'm still writing poems now. I'm still writing those types of poems because I found my niche. I found the way that I breathe through poems, and the way that I make love through poems. Now my pen is the only thing getting action right now. I'm telling you, I'm probably a real big promiscuous. I have a promiscuous pen.
I'm gonna be honest with you. So 7 years ago, right? We're coming up on the 8th year that Granny Sports has been in existence, right? Yeah. And so we used to, Witch and I did not write a lot of erotic poetry. It wasn't that we couldn't, we just didn't. And which I still don't write a lot of it. But what happened was there's always a competition with cats in the South and cats in New York. It is that's just what it's always been. There's no, I'm not going to even bite my tongue on that. They've always had a competition with us when we down here. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the cats from the South used to come and wait to the end of the night and I guess call themselves wooing the crowd with their erotic poetry. My idea of erotic poetry differs from a lot of people. I don't dislike the vulgarities in it, but I feel like if all your stuff is always vulgar, then where's the writing coming in, right? Don't tell me about the size of the penis going into the woman. Tell me how the clouds open themselves to accept me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, give me some writing in here.
And listen, I'm gonna tell you, because we gonna be here. So let me get. I'm gonna try not to go too far on this thing. How many ways can you say dick and pussy that your whole repertoire has dick and pussy in it? Like every poem you have, I've learned, I've become more sensitive and allowing, because I know if people are writing in their love language, they're writing in their love languages. But if you are relying on cussing, if you're relying on the basics, listen, I was a nurse's assistant. For a while. So I've seen enough dick and pussy to last me. And so that does not turn me on by no stretch of imagination. Show me what you can do with it if we in an intimate setting. You know, we all have them and they all look like aliens to me. Let's just talk about it. So I don't think, so when I hear people, in every poem you have, there's a dick and a pussy in it, or you slam somebody. Now I want to know, where is the language? How come we're relying on this language all the time? It's just like with cuss words. I was told, if you make sure that when you use a cuss word, it's purposeful and not to be using it just as empty language. So when I started writing, I don't cuss much. I cuss more now that my son is older, because now he feel like he can cuss. So now I get on his level. But what is it? That's what language is. There is, look, I'm about to get up. There's so many words to be used that I mean, how many words is in the dictionary?
That's what I'm trying to say. Listen. You can tell me, I know what the act is, right? So don't tell me we kissed. Tell me Venus and Mars met for the first time and it was perfect. Tell me the stars finally found the perfect setting in the sky and that made the winds cry. You know, give me something to pull on, because I know what the act is already.
If that's the case, then I could just go put on a porno and see the same thing over again. If we're just talking about the act of sex, it is only one way that you can slide a dick into a vagina.
That's it.
If we're talking about this act of sex, there's only one. If you kick it like that, there's only one way you can slide your dick in her ass. So I feel like it's very important that you describe the feeling. You describe the mood you set. You describe, I mean, one of my poems talks about, let's see, it says, tangerine pills left on the counter got your skin saturated in vitamin C. Stimulating the umami. Tantalizing my gullet, my mouth devouring every part of you. You be the appetizer I want to savor. You be that irresistible flavor. Well, baby, you were beautiful on my tongue.
Come on now.
You know, I could have said he put his dick in my mouth.
Right. I'm with you. Tell me I was addicted to you from the moment you slid down. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me something.
Right.
Tell me I was,
When you said, now, Ja, you got me working on something. When you said, can a poem for you, put a poem in your mouth for something?
Can I poem in your mouth?
Can I poem in your mouth? And I wanted to say, I'll swallow your soliloquy.
See what I'm saying? Come on, Miss Parker, come with it.
So it's not just about the act. And I guess everybody would say, well, you romanticize something. Well, I'm okay with romancing. If you're not, and you just want to get down to the nitty gritty, but what if you then give me language to tell me how we about to get down to the nitty gritty? And so I'm not opposed to intimate poetry because I think it's important. And I say intimate, I'm not opposed to erotic poetry, but if all of your poems start with dick and pussy, I'm probably going to check out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've heard it before. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Heard it before. You know,
And I've
if you're
heard
not
it on
telling me,
every tongue. I've heard it on a pitch, on a low pitch. I've
yeah.
heard it on a bass line. I've heard it on acapella. I mean, I've heard it in rhythm, it rhymes. I've heard it all before.
What I tell when the fellas be around, I tell them like this. A little boy can have sex, and a grown man is promising to take you on a journey. I don't want you to just have sex with me. I want to take you on the journey. Let's go someplace we ain't been before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if I'm not the man for you in that, I'm fine with that.
Right.
Because obviously there's somebody else to take you to that level. But if you're going with me, we going on a ride. And I'm trying to take you on a ride you ain't seen before.
And let's talk about it. Let's keep it honest. You might be if we going on a trip, everybody has a car. Everybody has a car. But when
some people got a bicycle.
Shit, you might be in skates. But the journey that we take,
yes,
the mountains, the scenery, you know, if I'm getting in the car, I'm not here. I'm here with you. I want to watch every move we make when it comes to that. You know, I want to, and that's why I say, if you make love through all your five senses,
there you go.
Now you got you a journey. Now you got you a journny. If you're not invoking every sense of lovemaking, then you cheated yourself.
I think it's the difference in us having a good time and us having a long time. And so we're not gonna have a long time if we got just this one good time. But if I want you to come back, I got to show you some shit that Joey didn't show you, that Peter and John and whoever else, it might be Melissa, but whatever they didn't show you, I got to be able to show you something different.
Right.
And when you are writing, you are creating something. I think when people write, they are either writing the story that they're living or the story that they're wanting. And so tell me what it is, because you might not have had this yet.
Right.
This is where you want to go. So let's talk about where you want to go, where you haven't been yet. Let's talk about that part. Or where you can tell me in a story and I could be like, wait a minute, hold on. You had to write that shit down in layman's terms. I need to be able to understand exactly what you're saying. Bring that over here.
Right.
And sometimes it should be cut to the point. I get that.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes it's deserving of a little, give me a little extra. You put some oregano in there. You know what I'm saying? Not oregano, some oregano. You know, black people, we cut letters off and shit. Put some oregano.
Yes. I'm a firm believer. Listen, I what they say, they say that our young don't know how to cook. They don't know, all they know is black pepper and salt and Lawry's seasoning. But cumin, sage, and all oregano and all of those other things. So it is, and so it is with poetry. And so it is with poetry.
Yeah.
I need you to bring out your spices. I need you to bring and show up in the room with not just not just pepper and salt. I need you to come in this room, and if you don't have all of the seasonings from around the world, then you should be looking them up. And so there's so many things that we as poets can pull from.
Yeah. And I just, one thing that I love about being a creative writing coach is being able to take the person who says they can't write.
Right.
And at the end of the session, they're like, wow, I didn't know I had that in me.
Yeah.
And I think when you are a poet and you grab a microphone, I think you have the opportunity to do that to someone in the audience and say, wow, I never thought about not just jumping off a roof, but when I jump off the roof, never landing. Right. And I think you have the potential to say that I can leap from this building and never land. Right. In fact, I can land when I get ready to. Right. And if I choose to jump off again, I can jump off of that landing strip and end up someplace else. And I think we have the potential to do that. And I like to see when poets do. I love when a poet got me slapping my knee and throwing shit around. That's the best part of it.
Listen, we did Women's Wildcard Wednesday this last Wednesday. And watching, and I'm honored I'm always honored for when somebody hits the room and does this flower thing. They just open up. I'm not, like I said, I'm a listener before I ever was a poet. So I'm always listening. And when you tell me some stuff in a way that you thought about it, like I would have never thought about it. You know, the new writer can teach the old writer something all the time. I don't feel like anyone has made it in poetry, even if they've made it, because there's always something to learn. Even when I was teaching swim lessons, I learned stuff from 2-year-olds. But what it means is you got to be open to the knowledge. You have to be open to it, and you have to remove ego. Ego gets in the way of our pens all the damn time.
All the time.
Ego gets in the way of our pens all the time because we feel like we can write it the best way. No, we write it a different way. And the people who you're supposed to connect with, you could be the best bomb ass writer ever. You could dance on words. You could know Webster's dictionary back and forth, but you're not going to make Cynthia feel. Cynthia feels Ja. Cynthia don't feel Miss Parker.
Got you.
You know, and so Miss Parker, she cool, but Ja, boom. And so we want, sometimes in our smallness, we want to captivate everyone. And when I say things, I always say 1 finger on you, 5 fingers on me. So you have to check your egos because you weren't sent here to move Cynthia. You weren't. Ja was sent to Cynthia. So be who you are in your most authentic self, because the people that God designs you to affect are the people that God has designed you to affect, and no one else. So an ABC rhyme or a rhyme that you feel like, oh, that's not adequate enough, might be someone's ABC mindset, that they hear that ABC, but they don't hear your geometry poetry, you know? So we have to pull our egos back a whole lot of times. But ego, a lot of people, let's talk about ego. And I got to plug up my phone, my computer, so I'm going to look like I got to get out the way. But let's talk about how ego plays 2 roles. It is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because the ego will stop you from picking up your pen. Oh, you ain't smart enough. Oh, how could you write that poem? Oh, well, don't nobody know who you are. Why would you step on that stage? You getting ready to step on a stage with Obi West. You think you can handle that? You don't need to. So our ego talks us into stuff, and ego talks us out of stuff. So we have to understand, when is ego working in because it's there. God put it there for a reason. So it's needed. But is it keeping us from doing something, or is it propelling us to do something, or is it keeping us, making us feel like we're more than someone else or less than someone else? We got to create a balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been on stage and have actually hosted events with some award-winning poets that I don't even speak to anymore. And what that means to me is, what that says to me is there was some ego tripping in there that needs to be redirected. And I'm just not up for the energy. I can have an ego. And hell, with some of them, I've done more work in the community than they have, or maybe ever willing to. In fact, I don't even think that's what they want to do.
Right.
Doesn't make me better than them or them better than I, but I know how to check my ego at the door.
Right.
I'm a confident man, so I'm going to walk around with some confidence. And some people say I'm cocky. I might have some of that in me. I might. But here's the difference in me and them, the ones that I don't speak to. I'm not an asshole. Right. You know what I mean? I don't try to be an asshole until I want to be one. And that's usually when I'm hosting and I'm ranting on the stage, because it's my event and I can do it. I'm good for that, Miss Parker.
Listen, if you don't have the ego that spikes you to be something, you will never be nothing. You will always be nothing. If you don't, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. If you don't have the ego that expects you to be something, then you will always be nothing. If your ego is always telling you what you can't do, you are never going to be successful. So you have to balance that, but it's important, so important for you to understand that if you don't, one or the other is not a good mix. You have to have the balance. So we are always trying to get into the balance of our egos. And so I'm excited about it when people talk your shit.
Yeah.
You know, even the person that feels small sometimes can raise the ego to say, you know, I'm pretty good in this. I may not be good in everything else, but this shit right here, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. AJ said, I think it was yesterday, somebody had said something. He said, well, I've never known a car to start with two positive wires. It was a positive and a negative. So you need some sort of balance. And I thought that was just masterful because he's 100% right. If you don't have no negative in your life, how do you know how to keep positive?
Yes. So you keep talking that one. I'm gonna plug this up because I got 5% and I don't want to lose y'all.
Okay,
and we got like 9%. We got 9 minutes left on this call, I guess. So let me make sure I'm ready.
Okay. Listen, everybody that's tuning in, I got the one and only Miss Parker in the building. Man, we learning today. I don't know about y'all, but I'm learning some shit today. And man, it's been powerful. I may not be able to get all of the messages that were on Facebook, but I promise I'll respond to them later on in the day. But man, it's going down. If you are here to learn some stuff, you're about to learn some shit. And if you haven't learned yet, go back and watch it because you probably got some stuff that you just missed. But yeah, we got Miss Parker in the house, y'all. Listen, Miss Parker.
Yes.
We don't, because we only got about 8 minutes left. I have to ask these two questions that I need to have your the top 5 most influential people in your life, dead or alive. Top 5 most inspiring people.
Well, let's go with the first one is my mother.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is my grandfather. And if we want to talk about the influences that people have really impacted my life who live here, who are still present, you know, I think that musically wise, Sarah Vaughan was it. Of course, you know, we could do Janet Jackson. I'm still waiting to see Miss Janet Jackson. Michael Jackson, I was a dancer at one point. So those people would be there. However, I love it that when I talk about this and somebody asks me this question, they're my family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're my family.
Yes.
I don't have to look. That means I don't have to look outside of me. They're my family. So they're connected to me. So I love that the person I look up to is my mom. I love the fact that it's my grandmother. I love the fact that it was my grandfather for the limited time that I had him, and I can pull from those people. So that means that what I'm searching for has already been found because it was in my genes.
It was in your DNA. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I'm not looking outside of myself to connect. Now, are there people who make me feel amazing? There's so many poets I could name. You know, John, you and your brother are on the list. You know, Moody. There's so many people I can name. But when I go to the root of me, when I am in the side of me, I'm saying my mother. I'm saying my grandfather. I'm saying my grandmother, and those are the people.
Yeah.
So yeah. So.
Great. Listen, I've not had that since I've asked that question. I have not had that. So thank you for that. And I'm grateful that you were able to have that because most of us don't.
Right.
And so my next question, give me the 5 people as far as celebrities.
Okay.
Dead or alive that you would love to be in their presence.
That's
top 5.
That's one of the questions that we ask on the Women's Wildcard Wednesday.
Is it? Wow.
Yes.
Good. Now you get to answer it.
Right, because I'm always asking it. If it come up, I ask it. You know, if I could sit in a room with someone, if I could sit in a room, dead or alive, I would sit I would sit with it would have been Michael Jackson.
Mm.
I would have sat with there is a I would have sat with Gandhi.
Mm. A lot of people say that.
And the reason I say that is because that when you talk about spirit and you talk about those things, I would want to know about that. I would sit with and then I would sit with everybody would say Malcolm X. I think I would sit with Malcolm because Malcolm did something that everybody talks about, which is that he educated himself, and I can't even imagine what it is to read the entire my attention span, the entire dictionary, and the stories that would be told there. So Malcolm, I said Gandhi. I would sit with Michael. No, I would sit with Janet. Because whatever Michael, I would find out about Michael through Janet. But I would sit with Mike. I would sit with Janet Jackson. And if I could have an honest opinion about it, if I could get an honest conversation from them, just to be naked with them, and then I would sit with a business person. I don't know which one. Lisa Nichols. I would sit with Lisa Nichols.
Which Lisa?
Lisa Nichols is a motivational speaker.
Okay, the motivation. Okay.
And at the top of her game is she's the only Black. I'm not going to say she's the only Black African American woman who is a motivational speaker, because we all are. Mm-hmm. But Lisa Nichols took her company public. Yeah. In public speaking, in motivational speaking. And that is something that everybody's striving to be. You go public, there's shares in your mouth. There are shares in your mouth.
Wow.
And so, that's and then of course, as a writer, I would sit with Maya Angelou. But she got coins in her mouth. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's an erotic poem, though. That's an erotic poem right there.
Okay, write it down, send it to me. So imagine you meet and everybody, all these poets that are around, imagine you decided to take your poetry to the market and someone said, I'm going to buy shares for what you say. And that's where you want to get. Nobody who ever knows you was like, I heard of Lisa Nichols. I'm going to buy shares in her company. But guess what her company is? Her company is her. It's her mouth. And guess when she created a book and she created a guideline to becoming a motivational speaker, now they're buying her product to make many or individuals under her umbrella. She is creating speakers. So, yes, I would sit my ass right down with Lisa Nichols in a private room, get the tea going, and if we're going to spike it, let's spike it, and I would just listen.
Wow. Well, listen, we got just over a minute left in the show. What a way to end it. I told you it was going to be a powerhouse today. Ms. Parker, thank you so much for being here today. If you have not learned something today, your ears were turned off. I'm not even talking about your heart or your mind, but your ears should have been dancing at some point throughout this conversation. And so thank all of you for tuning in today. I want to say what I say to you all the time. I challenge you today to be a better you today than you were yesterday. You have everything you need to get all of those things you want out of life, everything you are striving for. So get out and strive for that today. In this moment, you have it all. It's possible. It is at your hands. They said the Creator is sitting at the edge of his seat, waiting to be a blessing to you. So challenge you today to accept those blessings that he has for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if nothing else today, I want you to look in the mirror and tell that person you see in the mirror that you love them. Because guess what? Can't nobody love you like you love you. See y'all later on tomorrow, Monday, whenever I'm going to see y'all on live. Ms. Parker, thank you so much for being here. You are such a blessing to the audience. I love you. Hold on tight. I'm going to hang up and then I'm going to talk to you, okay? Hold on tight for 1 second.